At that time, there was a hell of a depression. And I left home with a dime in my pocket. And after walking around for a couple of days, I thought I better go where I can go. And so I walked into the recruiting station and I said, I'll join up if you can get me near airplanes. And I know damn well if I didn't join also, I would be drafted. So I better go where I can go. And the sergeant spent about an hour on the telephone, and he said to me, there's no place stateside that I can find an opening. He said, you'll have to go to Hawaii. I said, I'll take it. I can recall, as I was closing the door, goodbye, Mom. My mom turned to me and didn't say anything, and tears were rolling down her eyes. And I closed the door, and I didn't see her until I returned from the Pacific.
Were you able to communicate, send letters back and forth?
Oh, indeed. I screwed up, and when I sent a letter to my mom, my first letter, that they reduced my pay from $30 a month to $21, and but I didn't need any money, and my mom misunderstood, or I didn't explain myself clearly. My mom sent me a letter, and there was 3 $1 bills in it, and she said, "Here, Bill, I hope this helps." And boy, did it hurt to see her. I knew she needed that money more than I did, you see.
Yeah, especially at that time.
Yes.
That was a big
Oh,
deal.
indeed. It was a hell of a depression on.
Um,
Well, let me also tell you this, for what it's worth. About a year before that, my brother, who was joined up with the National Guard, said to me, my commander said, it's time for you to join up. And I recall, before I could think, I said to my brother, tell your commander that I have no intentions of carrying a rifle in this coming war. And then immediately I said, Mark, my brother, I said, Mark, don't you do that. They might hold it against you. And I think they kind of did, because my brother ended up in the trench in Europe, where the Germans were firing head on and the Americans were firing overhead. If he stood up, he'd have been hit by the American bullets, you see what I mean? And yes, my brother got a Purple Heart. Now, how precisely, I really don't know.
he survived the war, though?
Oh, yes, he did survive it. Yes.
Did you have any other siblings, or is it just your brother?
Did I have any what, please?
Other brothers and sisters?
No, just Mark, my brother. That's
I'm
it.
glad you both made it.
Yes.
That's incredible. And because you made it, your daughter's here, right?
Yes.
Because you survived.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yes.
So can you tell me a little bit of what it was like during Pearl Harbor, and what were you working on? You were a mechanic?
Yes, I was
what birds
B-17, B-18, O-47. As a matter of fact, I have a picture beside Dorothy Lamour.
What was it like to work on those different aircraft?
Well, one and the same. They have an engine, they have all the attachments, magnetos and generators and pumps and what have you, of all sorts. Very much the same. A little different circuitry or what have you. Yes, I was an electrical, hydraulic, and engine and propeller, constant speed propeller specialist. And yes, I had quite a few, which is why I believe I ended up in Fiji Islands. We were deployed to Fiji in 42, late 42. And that's when I lost all hope, excuse me, of seeing the mainland again. But they began taking, see, I had applied back in Honolulu, but I can't help but believe my commander didn't want to turn me loose. But then when I got to Fiji Islands, my luck changed. After I was in Fiji about 4 or 5 months roughly, and I had, as I mentioned, lost all hope of ever seeing the mainland again. But I had noticed that an African-American warrant officer with the Coast Artillery come down to the hangar and look and look and look and look. After 4 or 5 days, I thought, well, somebody got to go over there and talk to this guy. And so I went over and had a little conversation, and then I said, would you like to see the B-17? And he almost exploded with enthusiasm. So I thought, well, I'll give him the royal treatment. Took him around the airplane, explained everything I could, and took him inside, tail gunner's position, waist gunner, through the bomb bay, and explained the bomb racks and what have you, and took him into the nose where the bombardier and navigator stayed, and then brought him back and put him in the pilot seat. I had him open the window, had him move the controls, and turn on the battery switch and run the flaps and the coiling up and down, and explain all the engine instruments, flight instruments, and navigational instruments. And finally he said to me, well, you know so much about this airplane, why don't you fly them? And I said, well, you just hit a sore spot. I said, I have reason to believe my commander doesn't want to turn me loose because I'm an aircraft mechanic. And I said, but about 2 weeks ago, I reapplied. They're still looking for pilots to go through cadets. And I said, I resubmitted, and I said, I'll probably end up in the bottom of the pile because of my commander. Now hear this. About 3 or 4 days later, he came down to the hangar, dinky old hangar, the one airplane hangar, and we were having a meeting, and he came over to me in a half voice and says, your papers are on top. And he turned around, and I never got to see him again. I wish I had. My best friend, as it turns out. Sure enough, about 5 or 6 days later, I was on a little boat over to another island, Fiji Island, really Lebu, where a Dutch boat was docked. I was on it. 21 days back to Los Angeles. I don't mind telling you.
That's fantastic.
Several times on the way back, those 21 days, in the middle of the night, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, I would wake up thinking about how lucky I am. I went up to the bow of the ship, looking out over the horizon, the sea horizon, and scream at the top of my voice, as loud as I could, I have a chance. I have a chance. I have a chance. And bawl, and I don't mind telling you, bawl like a baby. When I hit Los Angeles, Santa Ana, I went through a bunch of mental and physical examinations and what have you, and there's lots of details there I'm skipping. But then I passed them all. I was on my way to Phoenix, Arizona, Thunderbird #1, primary Stearman aircraft, first aircraft, BT-13, Marana, Arizona. And then San Marfa, Texas, advanced, and that's where I got my, this is where I hit the jackpot. February the 7th, I was discharged as a staff sergeant, and the next day I'm now a second lieutenant. And I don't mind telling you, here I'm commissioned and I got my wings. I'm an Air Force pilot, and I was able to take $150 out of my pay for my mom. Oh, that meant a lot to me. Believe me, I can't explain it how much they would send it to my mom. You see, oh boy, and I got the airplane I wanted. They gave me a questionnaire. What airplane do you want to fly? In order. Well, I put down number 1 B-17, number 2 B-17. Number 3, and you got it. and this captain thought I was being a smart ass. He sent me in to see the major, and I said, Major, let me explain. Well, that's what the hell you're here for. And I says, I've been a mechanic, I know the airplane, why shouldn't I be allowed to fly? I get you. I'll make damn sure you're on the train to Hobbs, New Mexico, which I was. I'm now a trained first pilot on the B-17. Then I went to Plant Park, Florida, gave me a crew, navigator, bombardier, 6 gunners.
What model B-17s did you start flying?
It's, what I flew,
right.
It was not the G, the E and the F, the earlier models. The one that did not have the nose automatic guns. And
that's what the Memphis Belle is, F model.
Say again?
The Memphis Belle's an F model. It's one of the earlier ones.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then now and then I went to Gulfport, Mississippi, combat crew training, completed all of that, and then I was sent to Hunterfield, Georgia, picked up a G. That's the late model, and flew to Italy. Grenier, New Hampshire, or Gander, Newfoundland, the Azores, Marrakech, Morocco, Africa, and over to Libya, and then directly north across the Mediterranean to Foggia, Italy, which is at the spur of Italy on the Adriatic side. And from there, I flew 30 sorties out of Foggia, Italy. I was rather surprised after I was checked out 4 or 5 missions, and matter of fact, I had to check the pilot that was trying to check me out. Oh man, he was one of these. You only need 2 fingers if you want you to trim it up, and I'll take the time. Passing through 17,000, he was worn out. I says, have a cigarette and so. We had to turn the oxygen on to get the lighter lit so he could light his cigarette. This is 17 where oxygen is kind of scarce, so he only got a half a flame, but he finally got his cigarette lit, and so he needed that nicotine. That ash was that long on his cigarette. And I'm sitting in the co-pilot seat at the time, and I'm overlapping the wings. He couldn't. He was sweating, and when he saw I had the formation that I was tight formation that I was like, anyhow, he almost came unglued. But I mentioned that because I believe that's the reason I was asked to fly squadron lead very early in the game. And sure enough, I was. I was checked out, and now I'm squadron lead before I even got 7 or 8 missions in altogether. And
so you're calm and level-headed, and just you don't oversteer it, right?
Well, I don't know calm and level. I was busy. Let's put it there to get excited.
That's a lot of work to fly one of those.
It's yes. Oh, yes. Yes. If you and I'm an instrument type pilot, and I prefer to fly my instruments than looking out. The only reason I look out, see some damn fool in front of me.
So you guys really flew tight formations.
Oh yes, I kept
the
the
range
tight.
of the gunners and
Yes,
stuff.
yes,
Excellent.
yes.
What were some of those missions over Germany like?
Well, before I get there, I got to tell you this.
Sure.
This is probably the most important thing I got to tell you while I'm at it. On my second sortie as the squadron lead, I almost got blown out of the sky, direct hits, and tore a hole below me, and my two inboards were rough. I didn't think I was going to make it back. But what I want to get across is I felt like a kamikaze. There was no question that if I continued, I would be blown out of the sky. I wouldn't be here today. I'm going to give this squadron lead position back. I don't want anything to do with it because it is kamikaze. Here I am in a kamikaze position. I'm not a Japanese. Do I sound angry? You damn right I'm angry. Still today, and I even get more angry as I think about it at past time. I didn't think about it until 4 or 5 years ago. My daughter bought me this jacket. Things have exploded since then.
And it was flak, right? You were up against
Yeah.
the flak guns, the 88.
So I said to my bombardier, Andy, Fred Anderson, one morning after breakfast, trying to figure out what I'm going to do. Let's go for a walk. Get away from everybody so they couldn't hear what I had to say. I said, Andy, if I extend my base leg before turning on to the final track to the target, will that in any way hinder your control or bombing of a target? And I knew what the answer was. And he says, as long as I can see the target, it doesn't make any difference what channel they come in on. Oh, I get you. He figured it out right away. What I'm doing without telling anybody, I decided to fly my squadron offset deliberately. In other words, putting in the numbers, if the designated target, final track to the target was, let's say, 030 degrees, I would extend the base leg and then come in on 060 degrees to the target, deliberately offset. And if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be here today. Not once, twice, 3, 9, 10 different times. How do I know I'm doing the right thing? I take my eyes off my instruments and happen to look to the right or to the left. Pop, 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 3, 1, 2, 3, 4 balls. Now that took 88 millimeters on the ground to put those 4 or 5 bursts, which would direct hit. That would have split my aircraft to hell and gone. The Germans knew how to use their 88 millimeter. Indeed, they knew how. Because there it is, there's the proof. That's where I was supposed to be if I was squadrons in trail. See, the hell with that noise. Well, there's a lot more here I could say, but
did you have escort fighters as well? P-47s,
oh yes,
P-51s?
yes.
Would they be able to take you from base to target
Yes.
and back?
Yes.
At that time,
Yes.
even pretty early on.
Yes, they helped quite a bit.
But the big enemy.
But
was the
remember,
flak
each B-17 had quite a few guns.
and that's why you flew tight formation so you can maximize the range.
Yes,
of those,
it made a ball.
those 50 cals.
That's right. And there were times some of my gunners had to be cautioned. It could have shot down Tuskegee F-84Fs. Correction. No. That's the
P-51s?
yes. We managed at times to take pictures of hitting the target, what our results were, but not always could we get pictures of the ground. But as far as the fighters, no, I didn't give them much attention. Really, I didn't.
Yeah. So how many would normally fly in your formation? How many other?
Seven per squadron. And I was also a group lead of 4 squadrons. I can only say this, the lead squadron, I mean the lead aircraft that I flew mostly, I did not have a ball turret gunner. I had radar, and radar antenna was mounted in the position where the ball turret was.
Okay.
And I must say this, my ball turret gunner, when I became squadron lead, I lost him. And and he decided, and he made a very big mistake, he decided to fly every mission, and you can't do that without, he went down. And I feel somewhat guilty in a way because I did not need a ball turret gunner. I now had a radar operator on the lead aircraft. As a matter of fact, I used radar to bomb Vienna at night in thunderstorms, single aircraft. And the main reason was to disrupt the transportation ability of the German troops, which I have to agree with. That was my predominant targets, was to hit the railroads, the bridges, and seldom was I used to hit the towns or anything. I only did that, in fact, I hit commercial buildings, sought them out if I had to take a target of opportunity. Yeah.
Amazing. What was it like on your last mission? Did you know that your last one was it?
Yes, my last mission was I had group lead, and I made a milk run out of it, going up the Adriatic on the the west coast of the Adriatic, east coast of Italy, and and I was passing through roughly 17,000. And then I looked down below about 12,000. Here was a B-24 squadron, or a group. And I thought, well, I know damn well they're going to the same target. So what I did, I doglegged out over the Adriatic, about a 10-degree bite, and they cruised at 160, where I cruised at 150. And of course, the reason they cruised at 160 because of the Davis wing. It was very sluggish at 150, so they pumped it up to it. So I know he was 10 knots faster than me, so I doglegged out over the Adriatic, and then when he got even with me, then I doglegged back, and that put me right on his tail. And I know, see, they didn't go much over 20,000, whereas I could go to 31,000 to drop my bombs, which I did. And so I was now on his tail, and very likely one ball to the radar operator, German radar operators, you see. And so I didn't get any flak whatsoever, but they got quite a bit of flak. Why not? Make use of everything you can, you know.
Yeah, what was it like when you landed on the ground with your crew on that last mission day for you? What was that like for you personally? You know, like, hey, I'm done flying for this war.
Well, but then I had no idea Hitler was going to blow his brains out. April 23rd was the last mission, and I think Hitler blew his brains out May, somewhere there. May 8, May 7, or somewhere in that area. And the war was over. And I tried to stay there 3 months or 2 months, but they wouldn't let me. I even went to the third commander up the line. I don't want to go home yet. I'm here. I want to see Europe from the ground. I only seen it from the air, you know. And he wouldn't let me. I had to get on a Liberty ship at Sicily because I had too many points. I see my Pacific time. I had more points in my Pacific time as well as Europe, and my points went off the chart. So I had to get out of there. He said, if you weren't out here in 2 weeks, I'll be fired. That kind of stuff, which I thought was a lot of baloney.
Well,
did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. Thank you. Can you take me back to Pearl Harbor? Were you there when the attack happened?
Yes.
Can you talk about that?
Yes, yes. Yes, downtown, Saturday night, the town was loaded with white uniforms, unusual. I hadn't seen it before. I've been there now a little over a year. And what was obvious that the shore patrol, same as the military police, were hauling the over inebriated sailors back to their ship. And this is hearsay, but I believe it. After the brig was filled out, they laid them out on the deck. And there was even some free drinks downtown, believe it or not. And what I want to say is that with my buddies, we went to the north side of the island where we had a recreational facility, which was a total flop, no food. Well, when we got there around 10 o'clock that night, Saturday night, December 6th, and with 1,000 mosquitoes, we decided to stay there and then get up early in the morning and go get breakfast at Hickam Field. That evening, late evening, I noticed a car on the beach, on the North Beach, facing north. And I thought, well, hell, I'll go over, that's a lover's rendezvous. And I'll go over there and get on a running board like we kids used to do in Indiana, Pennsylvania, rock and roll and laugh like hell and run away. But then I could see through the windows out over the ocean, two heads up front, two heads in the back, and they weren't in any compromising position, shall we say. And then I'm already beginning to back up. Something funny here. And then I noticed on the rear bumper two of the biggest antennas, whip antennas. And I thought, holy smokes, what for? I didn't know much about communications at the time. But but I did know they were antennas and mounted on the rear bumper. And I thought something sinister, so I backed up and turned around, ran like hell, hid behind a palm tree and to see if anybody got out. Nobody got out. The reason for pointing that out is that only 5, 6, 7 years ago, I'm still learning, even though I was there, a lot about Pearl Harbor. I read a book where George C. Marshall, Chief of Staff, at the time, sent a communication to General Short, military, and Kimmel, Navy, to anticipate activity but not pass this information to the lower ranking officers. Well, I think maybe I was a corporal maybe at that particular time, and sure as hell I wouldn't get that information, but I can't help but believe it. But had I had that, I could not believe why we weren't on a token alert even. For what little I knew, with what the Japanese were doing, they were soon turning the Pacific Ocean into the Japanese lake, is what it simply boiling down to. But anyhow, had I known that at the time, I might have been pounding on General Short's door as to what I saw it would have meant something, but I never thought of it, and it never came to mind again until when I had that mission to bomb Vienna out of Italy at night, thunderstorms. Can you imagine carrying bombs in a damn thunderstorm? Oh, that was nuts. But anyhow, the next morning I said to my commander, what the hell did I accomplish last night? But the idea was to tear up the marshalling yard railroads and to prevent the Germans from moving troops, and whatnot, which I have to agree with that. But I didn't have to be in thunderstorms. I could have done it in broad daylight. And yeah, and I said to my commander, "What did I accomplish last night?" And he didn't answer. 10, 15 minutes, I said to my commander again, "What did I accomplish?" And finally he said, "Well, the higher headquarters wanted the Germans to know we could bomb any damn time we wanted to. Here's a pure case of my guts, your blood."
Right, yeah, it was round-the-clock bombing, so the RAF doing night bombing, and then you guys day, and then you also switched to some night.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
How the hell do I know? There was no precision bombing here. You couldn't use the bomb sight. What the radar guy, well, here's a radar guy gave me a courses to fly, and then when I was over, according to the bombardier, when I would be over this point, that the radar lets him know that I am over that particular point. Then all he does is toggle switch, you see, and drop the bombs. Well, who the hell knows where they go?
Amazing. December 7th, and that next morning after December 6th, what you saw that night, what was the morning like? December 7th.
Oh, hell, okay. All right, now, we got up about on our way around about 7:30 or a little before then, and approaching Wheeler Field, which is north of Pearl Harbor, 3 aircraft, fighter aircraft, overhead. And I looked up and I said, "Hey, who are those airplanes?" It had the red ball on the side, you know, 3 of them now. And I said to my buddy, I said, who those belong to? I said, "You know, I thought I was joking." I said, "We could be at war." And about 5 minutes later, it was pretty obvious we were at war. They were hitting the hell out of, hitting the fighters at Wheeler Field. And then I could look down and at Pearl Harbor, and they were pounding the hell out of Ford Island because the battleships were docked around Ford Island, which is in the middle of Pearl Harbor. And now on the right side is where Hickam Field is, adjacent to each other. And so that's when we got into the order room, and I asked the adjutant, "What shall we do?" And he said, "Be damned if I know." Well, that left me free to roam. This was Sunday, after all, no duty. Yeah.
So you were in the barracks. You were in the barracks when it happened.
And in the barracks. Well, I was near my barracks. No, not in. We spent the night in the north part of the island where that black car was.
Hold on 1 second. Yeah, so you woke up, had breakfast, and then got the word. I mean, what did you guys think was happening?
I never got breakfast.
Pretty early. It was pretty early, right?
They were pounding the hell out of right after the adjutant said, "I'd be damned if I know what to do." That left me free to roam, and I thought I would go to the big barracks for protection, and that was a very dumb thing on my part, because they were trying to torpedo it like as if it was a battleship. It was considered the biggest barracks in the world at the time, you see. But so I turned around and went back to my barracks on the other side of the parade ground, and I almost got clobbered. Yeah, thank God I lucked out.
Yeah, what was the atmosphere like? I mean, black smoke everywhere. Give me a sense of picture. Put me there.
At Pearl Harbor, yes. Oh, and by the way, they happened to bomb all at Hickam. They happened to bomb the hangars that had an airplane in it. Now, how in the hell did the fighters know? That's what I'd like. They had to have communications. Well, let me say this. I don't know if it's true, but I believe it. It's hearsay on my part that one of the Japanese at the main gate coming into the Hickam Field, he made the mistake of saying to the guard, "You see what the Japanese can do?" And I understand the guard shot him. I would have too. So I don't doubt for a minute they had many spies on the ground. After all, the population, Japanese population in Honolulu, Hickam, downtown Honolulu was 51% Japanese. And then there were streets that had the rising sun flags out. And like I said, then some of the bars were giving out free drinks. So I have a feeling there was a lot of planning there.
Were you able to help anybody there? Was anybody coming in for medical help or anything? Did you guys just get all together and make sure everybody was safe?
Oh, yeah. I ended up, to answer that question, about an hour after I ended up near the hospital, and I had acquired a rifle and 2 belts over my shoulders. I must have looked like Pancho Villa. And a 45 with a pockets loaded with 45 bullets. Here I'm waiting for street to street, corner to corner, which never happened. That was Yamamoto made 2 mistakes: the mistake of attacking, and the mistake of not unloading a troop ship, or kamikaze mentalities, you see. But I was asked by the officials at the hospital to stand guard for them for a couple of hours. And while a bulldozer was digging a trench to put the body parts in, buried in. There you are. And then after I was freed to roam elsewhere, we need to keep our defenses. We need to technically keep ahead of the rest of the countries so that we have the advanced. And by the way, I'm a little perturbed about this dropping Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Some of the people are complaining about it to this day. I want to say that, wasn't it Harry Truman did the right thing. If anybody has any other, can you imagine how many troops we would have lost if we had to invade Japan normally, or what is normal? What the hell, in wartime, what is normal? Baloney. The troops we lost at Pearl Harbor, was that insignificant? The troops we lost at Iwo Jima, Philippines, and what the Japanese were doing in Indochina, China as well, and other many islands that they already consumed or put their troops on. We should have overlooked that to avoid hitting Japan with a couple of A-bombs. I'd probably put a couple more if it been me. We'd lost a hell of a lot of troops, and Truman prevented the loss of several thousand. It might have been 100,000 troops. That's more important to me, not somebody else's troops.